Ishikawa used to get called one of the best outside hitters on the planet. Then, in the Nations League's playoffs, he suddenly forgot how to pass a serve. Like a completely different player showed up on the court. What happened to Japan's captain in one season? Let's break it down. Back in the 2022-23 Italian Superlega season, Yuki Ishikawa and Augustin Losser both playing for Milan, pull off a stunner, knocking out Wilfredo León and his Perugia squad in the quarterfinals, with the Japanese outside hitter personally putting the exclamation point on that series. Just one season later, the duo moves over to the Block Devils and helps the club win its first ever Champions League title. Ishikawa landed in Perugia to replace Wilfredo León, who gone off to conquer new heights in the Polish league and immediately brought Lublin to historic titles. For fans of Japan's captain, his time at the Italian powerhouse turned out to be pretty painful. For me, though, that first season was a real eye-opener. Year 2 he probably stuck around more for commercial reasons than sporting ones, but that's not what we are here to talk about. After his prime season in Milan, I genuinely considered him the best outside hitter in the world at the point, not just at club level, but for the national team too, where he was the undisputed first option. And who knows how the Paris Olympics run would ended if not for Italy's legendary comeback in the quarterfinal, the exact match where Yuki couldn't close it out. And here's the wild part. Somewhere in my head, this pretty obvious stereotype has taken root, that all Japanese players are great passers. I'd already done a technical breakdown of Ishikawa a few years back, and I still had no idea this system had real exceptions. His time in Perugia opened my eyes to that, so did last season's Nations League, and especially the playoffs. There's genuinely a lot to unpack here. Ever caught yourself with a stereotype like that about players from a certain country? Drop in the comments, let's talk about it. That said, you can't call Yuki a bad passer. Elite, no, but definitely above average. In my opinion, what he ran into in Perugia was mostly psychological. When the Italian giants finally decided to ditch their dependence on León and play a more balanced brand of volleyball built around solid reception, getting the same level of trust Ishikawa had in Milan just wasn't in the cards. We all remember how long it took Kamil Semeniuk to earn his spot in the lineup, and he arrived in Italy as a reigning Champions League MVP. Ishikawa joined Perugia with just as much star power. And that's exactly where the self-doubt started creeping in. When you've got elite passers like Plotnytskyi and Semeniuk next to you, being afraid to lose that battle for minutes is completely normal, where he used to not always be the first target for opposing servers. The pressure on him only kept building. On one hand, training every day with a squad that's regularly near the top of the league in aces should in theory make you better in passing, but I wouldn't rule out the opposite effect either. Fewer clean passes in practice could easily chip away at your confidence, especially since in year 1 with the team he wasn't even dealing with injury issues yet. What do you think? Was this more about the psychology or straight up internal competition? Vote in the comments. That's when the image of the Japanese León formed in my head. Ishikawa kept pulling off ridiculous stuff in attack, even the mediocre passes. But unlike the Polish national teamer, he had a much bigger tactical toolbox and more speed, which gave Giannelli extra ways to mess with the block. Because if the set used to go high to León, blockers could time their read whenever they wanted. With Ishikawa though, you couldn't just abandon zone 4. You might not even get there on the touched ball. And by the way, Ishikawa's move ended up accelerating Giannelli's own progress too, but that's a whole separate video. Want a full breakdown on Giannelli? Let me know in the comments. I'll put it together based on what gets the most requests. There's really no need to say much more about his attacking. This part Nation League, Yuki proved yet again he's got elite offensive tools. If it weren't for the serious reception and health problems, Japan could finish with a lot more than 4th place. But there's a coaching angle here too. We'll get to that in a bit. Honestly, at the end of the 24-25 season, watching his dominate the Champions League Final 4, I figured he'd lock down his spot at the Italian club for another year.
But then the Japan's tour and the matches against the Sunbirds made it pretty clear. A breakdown season wasn't coming. On top of that, Ishikawa got hit with serious injuries and basically missed almost the entire club season. And that brings us to the whole point of this video. Ishikawa's reception falling apart during the Nations League playoffs. Reason number 1. Reception is a skill that demands constant, ideally competitive reps. And that's exactly what the Japanese star was missing throughout the club season. Sure, there were 12 Nations League matches. Isn't that practice? Fair point, decent rehab plan on paper. But that's where factor number 2 kicks in. Fatigue. Ishikawa was carrying a massive attacking workload, and combined with his knee injury, it clearly showed in his physical condition. You could see he just didn't have that freshness in his movement. And if you are not the kind of passer who does almost everything with his arms, tight legs are going to tank the quality of your passing. And then there's the knee injury itself, which was bothering Japan's captain for the entire international season. That's basically 100% certain. Compare his older matches to this Nations League and you will notice it right away. He's not getting down as low on the serve receive anymore, even though he never had a super wide stance to begin with. He's lunging into passes less often now, most likely because of the knee discomfort. His movement got choppier and less controlled, when before they were smooth and calm. In training, that kind of things might barely show up in the stats. But at the highest level, under real pressure, those teeny details become the difference maker. Did you actually notice these little technical details while watching the matches, or is this the first time you are hearing about it? And here that promised bit on Japan's tactical issues. With the recent rule relaxations on rotation, a lot of teams have started swapping passer spots, which is especially useful against a float serve. And with the new international season rule that lets you switch your reception position after the server starts their approach, why wouldn't you use that? For some reason though, Japan just didn't take advantage of it and never rotated Yuki around, especially on the back row. That could have been a great way to reinforce the reception, instead of just swapping the captain out for Tomita once a set. Do you agree with Japan's coaching staff here, or do you think this was a missed opportunity? Tell me what you would have done. So first and foremost, I just want to wish Yuki good health and a strong run in Turkey, where he's headed for the new season. And I really hope he gets that confidence back and becomes a complete Ishikawa again, not a Japanese version of León.
If the breakdown was useful, drop a like, it genuinely helps the channel grow. Subscribe, so you don't miss the next videos. And definitely leave a comment. Do you think Ishikawa gets back to his peak level in Turkey? And if you want a breakdown on Giannelli or comparison of other outside hitters, let me know that too. I build the next video around whatever comes up the most. And as always, this was Nick. Love what you do and you will definitely succeed. See you soon. Bye.